In this lesson, we're going to cover verse 1 of Baker Blues. This is a 12-bar blues, but what we've done is strip down the finger picking. So the chord progression is going to be the same as the other verses, but in this particular verse, this is going to really just focus on the alternating bass with your thumb and then the main idea of the melody without a lot of filler to get lost or to complicate things. So there's a lot of pinching, so playing the melody on the beat, and then there's only a few instances where we're playing in between the beat. And the in between the beat, that's usually where our picking fingers start to have some trouble. So we've minimized that for this particular verse. Before we get into the picking, let's take a look at the chord progression itself. So this is in the key of A. So our first 4 bars are going to be on this A7. Then we'll have 2 bars on a D7, which is going to be in this shape here, but I'm going to hook my thumb around and catch the 2nd fret of the 6th string. Then we move back to the A7 for 2 bars. And then we move into the B7, up to the D7 in this position, leading off with the D on the 5th fret of the 5th string. And then finally, the last 2 bars are A7 for a bar and E7 for a bar. Let me strum through the progression, and I'll just kind of tap along to give you a 4 count, but really just get inside the actual chord changes here. This is slightly different from your typical 12-bar blues, so it's really important to have these chords really locked in your memory before we start adding any finger picking. So here we go. Here's the progression. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, and now what we want to do, after you practice that and strum through that a few times and you really know where you're going as far as the chord changes, we'll start to add in the finger picking. So let's get started by taking a look at the first 2-bar phrase on the A. Okay, so what we're doing there is we're doing a A, and so the A is on the 5th string, and we're alternating between that bass and the 2nd fret on the 4th string. So that's kind of held down throughout these first bars on A, and that's your alternating bass. I'm applying a slight palm mute here just to keep the strings from ringing. That's not what we're looking for. We want it kind of a little dull. So what we do to get the melody notes working in there is we're going to hit the bass by itself, then we're going to pinch with the 4-string bass, we're going to pinch the 2nd fret of the 1st string. So, and I usually like to catch that with my pinky. Like that. So it kind of sneaks in behind your ring finger on the 2nd fret of the 2nd string. Your pinky is going to catch the 2nd fret of the 1st string. And then we'll pinch with the open 5th and 1st strings. Finish up with the bass on the 4th string. So those are the 4 beats. So here, the finger picking is relatively straightforward because we're just doing either a solo bass note or we're pinching a melody note along with the bass. Then for the top of bar 2 is where things get a little more interesting. We're going to pinch with the 5th string and the 1st string, but you're going to sneak your pinky up to the 3rd fret and pinch. And between the beat, you're going to move your pinky back and play the 2nd fret. So that's the first instance of playing in between the beat in this verse. Then you'll pick your pinky up. After you move it back to the second fret, you'll pick it up and pinch. Actually, I take that back. You don't pinch. You gotta hit the bass by itself, and then in between the beats, you'll play the open first string. Here we go. This is that part. And let me play that for you a little slower, and you can get a closer look at the picking that's going on here. Alright, and now we're going to move on to the next 2-bar section, and that really is, for a lot of the notes, it's identical to the first 2 bars. In fact, we're only going to change the last little beat of bar 4. So here's what bar 3 and bar 4 sound like. The only thing that is different in bars 3 and 4 versus the first couple of bars is that last little hammer-on move. It happens on the and of 3. So 3 and 4 and that little move. It's the only difference. But now it will take a little bit to get it down. It's kind of odd to think about starting this hammer-on before the beat, but your timing here has to be perfect. Here's bar 4. Count it out so that you can really hear when the notes need to be plucked. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Notice how that hammer-on started on the and of 3. So if we're counting this out slowly, we've got 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. That is key. You want to make sure that you come down on that hammer-on on beat 4, on the downbeat. It's a really strong beat. It's a really good way to reinforce this melody. So 3 and 4, 3 and 4. You're actually going to pinch, not pinch, but you're going to come down on the hammer-on when you hit that 4th string bass. And then, just after you hit that bass on the and of 4, finish out with a nice open first string. So here's the first 4 bars. I'll play them all together and pretty slowly. Alright, and now we're ready to move on to the D7 bars in bars 5 and 6.